In this video, I'm going to tell you about a strategy that may lower your lifetime tax bill and help your portfolio last longer. I'm talking about Roth conversions into retirement, and we're starting right now. I'm Dan Lohmar. I'm a CFP professional with United Wealth Management, where we specialize in PRAP management and financial planning for pilots at United Airlines. And like many of you, my business partner, Alan Bewley, and I are both United pilots. Welcome to another video. Hey, if you want to learn how to manage your taxes and grow your money so that you enjoy the retirement you deserve and help your money last longer, go ahead and subscribe to my channel on YouTube and hit the bell icon so that you know when new videos come out. You know, one way to help manage your income both before and during retirement is to do Roth IRA conversions. This is a simple process that allows you to move money from tax-deferred accounts like an IRA or the United Pilots PRAP to a Roth IRA. In general, the amount that you convert is added to your income for that year and will be taxed at that year's tax rate. But then the money in the Roth IRAs grows tax-free and comes out tax-free. There are two potential benefits to doing these. One, ideally you do them in years where your tax rate is lower than what you'd expect it to be in the future. And two, they can help you lower required minimum distributions, which begin at age 70 and a half. And the combination of the two has the potential to reduce your taxes over your lifetime and help your money last longer. Now, there's no question everyone's situation is different. Roth conversions may be more beneficial for some and less so for others. This means you will hear many differing opinions about Roth accounts and Roth conversions. There's nothing wrong with that. No one is 100% wrong or 100% right. But what it does mean is it's very situation dependent. The only way you'll know is to have comparisons ran based upon your specific situation. For now, let's go to the computer and talk about what you need to know about Roth conversions in retirement.
Good afternoon from Guam. I'm coming to you from Guam on my layover. I was going to post this on Monday, but then when I went to make the edits, I decided there's a few changes I wanted to make. So just doing it this afternoon on a beautiful day here. Roth conversions in retirement. I'll talk to you about what you need to know. We'll make a couple hypothetical comparisons and then also answer some frequently asked questions. As always, this is for educational purposes only. Should not be taken as tax, legal, or investment advice. So seek your own counselor, your own advisor, or your own personal wisdom for your personal situation. Here's a good quote I came across the other day. I thought this is very appropriate for what we're talking about. It's tough to be old, and it's tough to be broke, and it's unthinkable to be old and broke. And that's what we're talking about. Tax strategies and Roth conversions are a longevity strategy. So it's trying to boost your financial security at one of the most important and critical times in your life. What are the Roth conversions? It's rolling money over from tax-deferred accounts like your IRA or your Pilot's PRAP into Roth IRAs, which are tax-free. We can do them while we're working or while we are in retirement. Typically, the idea is that while we're working, we're in higher tax brackets. We have more income, higher tax brackets. And so the idea to do them while you're in retirement is that you're in potentially a lower tax bracket. That's not always the case, but that is the general idea. It is a taxable event. It does create taxable income in the year of the conversion, and then it can push you into a higher tax bracket. The upside of doing these is to lower your lifetime taxes and to extend portfolio longevity. That's the big advantage. And then the other thing to do is that it can potentially create a greater inheritable asset, because the more money that is shifted into Roth accounts, then the fewer taxes your heirs need to pay when it goes to them. If you had all of your money in tax-deferred accounts, when they receive that as in an inheritance, they would have to pay taxes on that money. So those are the upsides, and then the downside is generally is that you do have to pay more taxes up front, and it does take time for these strategies to pay off. When's the best time to do it? Anytime you're in a lower tax bracket. So sometimes this takes some guesstimation and comparing some possibilities, and there's other times it's more obvious. If you're at the end of your working years and you're in a really high tax bracket and you have cash build up to live off of in your first few years, that's a time when it's pretty obvious. But there's other times it just takes a little bit of guesstimation and you need to compare some scenarios. A good case for this is when you have cash built up to live off of in your early years of retirement, because if you're living off cash that you've already paid taxes on, you essentially could be in a zero income year, a very low tax bracket, and that's a good time to do conversions. What might that happen? Will we encourage people to build up cash in their final working years, so they have that liquid investment? There's liquid investments there to live off of from the time they retire until 67 or 70 when they start taking Social Security. So building up some cash in the late working years, you might be an insurance beneficiary. So for Guard and Reserve guys that start taking retirement income at age 60, there's a 5-year period you could save up that cash, use that to live off of during your early early retirement years. Selling business or selling rental property, now that is a taxable event, but if you did it a couple years before you retired, that would give you some cash to live off of. And then if you're downsizing home, there's home equity that you could use, and then an inheritance. So those are all cases where you might have some cash come in that would be good to live off of and good years to do Roth conversions. So the basic strategy is called filling up your tax bracket. So in the years that you're in a lower tax bracket, you might say, hey, I'm going to do Roth conversions so they take me to the top of the 12% or the 22% tax bracket. So that's one of the basic ideas, and it's pretty simple without doing a whole bunch of long-term analysis. And then there's more aggressive strategies where you might do very large conversions that could put you two tax brackets higher than what you are. And then the idea that would be you're getting rid of all your tax deferred assets, converting them early into tax-free accounts to essentially eliminate required minimum distributions. That's just a very aggressive strategy that someone may consider. So here's an example of filling up the tax bracket. Captain Joe and his wife Jane, this year they have $100,000 of taxable income. They're in the 22% tax bracket, and that goes up to $168,400. So they have $68,400 of income that they could do conversions on and stay in the 22% tax bracket. So that's something they may consider. And as we look at this hypothetical, you'll see that's what they end up doing. So here's our hypothetical. We'll go a little bit deeper. Is they have a PRAP that's worth $2.4 million. He's got a Roth IRA account with $100,000. He's built up $200,000 in cash and a retirement health account of $100,000. His basic scenario before he does anything, he's going to spend his account types down in the order of conventional wisdom. So he's going to spend down his taxable accounts first, his tax-deferred accounts, and then his tax-free accounts. And then once he has a funding strategy that looks good, then he'll do some Roth conversion analysis after that. This is kind of what it looks like. He has no Roth conversions in his base scenario, and he ends up in his first 6 years of retirement. He's in the 0% bracket because he's got cash to live off of, in the 12% bracket and the 22% bracket, and those are all in his first 6 years. And then once his required minimum distributions begin, they're pretty big, and they put him in the 28% bracket with when he's doing RMDs and for the rest of his life. So he says, can I do anything to reduce my RMDs and potentially pay lower taxes over my lifetime? First of all, the couple of things I'll note here is that he's well funded. There's no question about the funding of his spending plan or anything like that. If his spending plan was questionable, where he had a low probability of success or his account balance was really starting to deplete towards the end, then he would have to revisit that before he even looked at tax strategies. So we look at some Roth conversion scenarios, and what we look at is doing Roth conversions up to the top of the 22% tax bracket for his first 6 years. And what this results in is lowering his RMDs, and it also puts him in the 25% tax bracket for the rest of his life. So he ends up paying some more taxes up front, but it lowers his lifetime tax bill. He has a projected additional surplus because of doing this of $222,000. So this is a very comfortable strategy, and it makes sense to him. So he says, yep, it's worth paying a few extra bucks in taxes up front to lower my lifetime tax bill. Those are what his Roth conversions look like in the first 6 years. So pretty heavy one at first because he's living off cash there, and he's in such a low tax bracket, and then they kind of decrease over the next 5 years. If you look at a comparison here, The break even on this is about 85. So when I say this is a longevity strategy, yes, it does take some time to pay off. One thing I would keep in mind here is that even though the yellow line, which is the account balance without doing conversions, is higher for longer, the thing to keep in mind is there are more assets in there that have not yet been taxed. And so from an inheritance point of view, that inheritable account value would actually be lower than what it is. So that's always something to keep in mind. So as you look here at total taxes, when he's doing Roth conversions in the blue bars, he's paying a little bit more up front, but then he's paying a lower amount over his lifetime. And then the opposite, when he does no strategies, he pays lots up front, but it's a higher bill over his lifetime. You can see here that the RMDs are lower over here when he's doing the Roth conversions. In a second hypothetical, here's a good situation just to show you that it can work even without having different account types. In this situation, I made it so that he's got the vast majority of his money in a tax-deferred account, in his PRAP, and he's got some cash, like an emergency fund, but it's not really enough to make a huge amount of difference. So how's this funding strategy, and can we do Roth conversions to improve it? Let's take a look at it. First basic strategy, he's well-funded here. There's not any issues with his spending plan. He does no Roth conversions, and his total lifetime taxes are a little over $1.4 million, and with a surplus of $2,224,000. So he says, all right, can I do some Roth conversions, and will it make a difference over my lifetime? So we run some strategies, and he does Roth conversions up to the top of the 24% tax bracket. What this results in is it depletes his tax-deferred assets quicker. And in his RMD years, it puts him in a 25% tax bracket, which eventually lowers and goes down because he is eliminating his RMDs over time. And so his total lifetime taxes are a little over $1 million, so that saves him $372,000 in projected tax savings, and then an additional inheritable surplus of $217,000. So the thing to see here is, even though if you don't have a bunch of different account types to live off of, you don't have a bunch of different, you don't have cash to live off of, you can still look at doing Roth conversions. Now, this is a more aggressive strategy because it's eliminating required minimum distributions, and the earlier that money gets to a tax-free account like a Roth and has that time to grow over time, then the better it's going to work. But it is a strategy that you have to be comfortable with because it's fairly aggressive. This last plan assumes that his beneficiaries are going to pay a 25% tax rate. In other words, when they inherit assets, accounts like IRAs that have not yet been taxed, they are going to owe taxes on them. And so their tax rate makes a difference on what the plan looks like. So I just want to point that out because account values are nominal account values are what's in the account, and an inheritable account value is what your heirs may actually receive. Now, I'm not getting into whether we're doing stretch IRAs or taking it all at once. Just the point is that it's not the entire account balance because they're still going to owe taxes on it. But then if you're going to give it to a charity or any other situation where there's no taxes, that's going to change the picture there too. So just keep those things in mind. If you look at these two strategies of the last one where he has no cash accounts to live off of, the top yellow line here is where he's doing no Roth conversions and the account balance is higher. But the thing to keep in mind, the reason it recommends doing Roth conversions is because, again, the inheritable amount of money here is going to be lower because more taxes are owed on that account. So even though the account balance, the nominal account balance is lower when you do conversions, the inheritable value is actually greater, and then eventually they would catch up here. So total taxes up front are higher on the conversions, but as you can see here, the required minimum distributions end at around 82 in that scenario. So a couple questions that are common to Roth accounts. Can I undo a Roth conversion? You cannot anymore. once you do a Roth conversion, it has to stay there. You used to be able to do what's called a recharacterization, and they eliminated that with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, so that is no longer a factor. Can you do Roth conversions after you're age 70 and a half and while taking required minimum distributions? Yes, you can, but you have to take the RMD out first, and then anything that remains in the account can do Roth conversions on it that way. Can you do Roth conversions in the PRAP without rolling it into a Roth IRA? Yes, you can, but the PRAP and most Roth 401ks require that you start taking distributions at age 70 and a half. And so if you have RMDs on those Roth 401ks, it kind of defeats the purpose of having that longevity of tax-free growth. Partial account conversions, yes, I think we answered that. You do not have to convert an entire account in any one year. You can do small conversions and spread your taxes out over your lifetime, and that's how you would end up filling up your tax bracket without going over. Can you offset Roth conversions with investment losses? Yes, you can, but only up to $3,000 per year. And then what if the tax laws change? This is a great question, and it's very important to talk about when we talk about anything with tax strategies, because the tax laws have always changed, and they probably will change in the future. So it's a good thing to talk about. What I like to do is just run a base scenario based on what we know today. What we know our income is, what our spending is, what our tax brackets are, and how the tax law exists today. See how that looks, and then if you want to say, all right, well, what if tax rates go up in the future? Then run a scenario, just make the adjustments in the scenario run. We have the software that does that. That's what allows us to make all these comparisons. But the base thing is, after you run these scenarios, is the strategy you're applying, would it apply if the tax laws change in a particular direction? And as long as the strategy is the same, maybe the numbers might change or whatever, but the strategy itself is what is important here. So, and the other thing to do is, and you cannot get away from this, is looking at it every single year. So yes, the tax law is going to change. Life changes. There's all kinds of things that can change. So look at these every single year. There's no way you could retire, say this is going to be my strategy for the rest of my life. It's revisiting things every year. So lessons learned from this: always start with a sound funding strategy using conventional wisdom, order of account spending. So make that your base plan and make sure you're well funded in that situation. If you had a depleting account value where you might be running out of money towards the end of your life, I would revisit your spending plan before getting into tax type strategies. Compare longevity strategies to the base plans. In other words, once you had your base plan using conventional wisdom, then start to add in some Roth conversion strategies, see how much difference those make and improve the plan from there. The other thing to keep in mind is that we think of RMDs, required minimum distributions, as account withdrawals. Hey, remember that money needs to stay invested. Your plan probably counts on a certain rate of return. Just because you have to take required minimum distributions does not mean that money needs to go sit in cash. It needs to be reinvested in a taxable account in tax-efficient investments. Everybody is different. Every scenario is situation dependent. And so do what works for you. There's a lot of different opinions out there, and none of it is really misinformation. It's just that people are talking about what works for them. So look what works best for you, and just take that into account so you don't get confused by what someone else is saying. And then always keep in mind that a lot of these tax scenarios, especially Roth conversions, are longevity strategies. It's about making your money last longer, and it may take some time for these to pay off. So that's it on Roth conversions and retirement. Another thing I'll talk about are qualified charitable distributions. It's another strategy to help you manage required minimum distributions once you're in retirement. That's what my next video is about. And so that you know when that video comes out, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified.
As you can see from the examples, doing Roth conversions in the retirement has the potential to add years to your portfolio and lower your lifetime tax bill. Now, there are conservative strategies that might be as simple as filling up your current tax bracket in low-income years. And then there are very aggressive strategies that do large conversions early in retirement to virtually eliminate required minimum distributions. The only right answer is to compare scenarios based on your specific situation. There's no wrong or right way to do these across the board. The software we use kicks out 40 different scenarios specific to an individual situation. And then we help clients choose the one that they are comfortable with and makes sense to them. And this may be entirely different than what we do for somebody else. I hope all this helps you better understand if Roth conversions may be right for you. My next video is about another tax strategy that can help you manage RMDs, and that's called qualified charitable distributions. It's a short topic, but important to know and not often talked about in retirement planning. And so that you know when that video comes out, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified. And if you have any questions about this topic or would like to talk informally about your situation, use the contact me link in the video description on YouTube or shoot me an email, dan@unitedwealthmanagement.com. And if you use my email, just let me know that you're a United Pilot. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dan Lohmar, CFP professional with United Wealth Management, where we specialize in PRAP management and financial planning for pilots at United Airlines. Until next time, invest with a plan based on science and evidence. Everything else is just guessing.